Hi everyone, and welcome to this stream by offensive security. Sorry, I was just hearing my own echo. Yeah. Hi everyone, and welcome to the stream by offensive security. My name is Siddicky, and I'm a student mentor at OffSec. Today, we'll be covering an Active Directory set from the PEN-200 labs. Now, this has been requested a lot, and this is something that I've seen a lot of students ask that, OffSec has released exam templates and guides on different machines. However, we had yet to include anything regarding the Active Directory. So I think this is a great opportunity, especially because, as you know, the exam has a greater weightage for the Active Directory set. So we have around 40 points, and it's either you get all or you get none. So I think this is going to be a great experience, especially for those who just want to see how different, how to approach the set as a whole. And for this stream, what I'll be approaching it is as if I was be doing the exam. So we'll have a list of, I guess, a few IP addresses, and that's how we'll go about it. A few notes. Firstly, we'll start obviously in 8 minutes. But another thing is that I'm not going to be focusing more on the initial scanning, like ports and everything that usually is covered. Generally, you can find that everywhere, right? So what my main goal is to cover the Active Directory aspect of it. However, obviously, we'll go through the steps. And another thing that's going to be great is, especially after the stream, we will be releasing, some sort of additional material. So it's not confirmed as to exactly what is in the works. However, there will be additional supporting material that will aid you better in the exams. So while we wait, we still have 7 minutes, and I'm just gonna hop onto the chat and check what's going on over there. Really, is the mic not sounding as easy on the ears? I can obviously configure something so that it doesn't happen during the stream. Okay, I think it should be better now. Kind of grounded. Okay. So we still have 4 minutes, and while we're a little bit of troubleshooting going on. However, well, I can always change that in case I do see the chat, having issues. However, for the AD, so this is other than the AD, what I've noticed is the that students generally, they struggle with buffer overflow exercises, and so that's one thing I've kind of really repeated myself. And for the active PEN-200 students, you guys might have noticed that these days we released a new thing on Discord, which is the bot, the hints bot. And what we tried to do is that we saw where most of the attention, where most of the students struggled with certain exercises that they used to get stuck on. And, it's sometimes you just need a little bit of a nudge, but you need it instantly, right? So, so that's there too. But so I think on top of the list is your buffer overflows. And then we have, I think second was the OScent exercise, where you have to go to LinkedIn or some other social media. So that would be your active, passive reconnaissance, and then finally Active Directory. But I think as we move forward, its Active Directory is going to be much more relevant and useful. And what I can say is regarding the exam. So here, one thing that we won't be able to replicate would be the pivoting aspect. Now, obviously, I can't say that exactly like what the exam holds, but however, you can expect, that you're going to find pivoting. However, it's not going to be that different. So just have to, if so, I would highly recommend, trying to get into the IT department, dev, and once you're there, you can try using a Windows machine as a pivot, and then experience how things go from there. But yeah, so now we're 1 minute away from the stream, so I'm just gonna now get those things set up. So for those of us who are just joining us, my name is Siddicky, and I'm a student mentor at Offensive Security. And today we'll be going over an Active Directory set from the PEN-200 labs. What this means is that this set is currently active in the labs, and we'll be using it today so that the students especially can get better insight on how to go about these things. So now let's get started. So the first thing I did do was revert the hosts, and we should see them reverted. Yeah, this one was a separate one, but I had to refresh my page. But I will, we just need to revert one of them, and it will, affect the other ones. So normally it doesn't really take that long. I'm just going to revert it. And a few things about the setup. So if we do an XR-R, you'll see usually when I am, when I know that I'll be approaching the Active Directory, any set, I do have a few things already configured. So this is again something that I would highly recommend to the students, that you should have certain folders, certain things ready, because those are gonna you can expect them. So obviously for Windows, we have Power Up, Power View, and then I'll show what this is. But before even we start this, I did want to share another thing that I had been working on, and this is something that I used not heavily in the OSCP exam, and it's really useful. So every time you have to place the IP address, place it in your commands, what you can actually do is, if you use Obsidian, you can have everything ready for you using the template engine. So let me just show you. So I know my IP is going to be 119 and it's going to be 139. And the hosts are most likely this address, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here. I have my templates ready. And the moment I clicked on that, you'll notice that my IP gets populated. This is similar to if you guys have used Pentest site where it will replace those things for you. However, this is a free version of what you can do with it. So this was the initial template, which did not have the host IP or any of those IPs populated. And then you can already have certain commands that you would need. Obviously, for the OSCP or even this machine, this is too much. This is from my own personal notes that I normally use, so I don't have to keep on copy paste, typing these out, but they're really useful. So today even we'll see what applies where. But yeah, this will now right off the bat, my own host IP address has been populated. So now if I want to just download something, I'll quickly gonna move it, copy paste this, change a few variables, and I'm good to go. But yeah, that was a small thing there. And I think that that's pretty much covers that. So let's get started. Let's see what our hosts are. So normally in the exam environment, you will be provided a few IP addresses. And by just looking at the IP addresses, you can sort of tell which one is the AD and which ones are the individual ones, because they go in a set. However, if you can't, you can just quickly scan and you'll know. So for us, these are the 4 IP addresses that we were provided and which we'll be exploiting. So the first thing I'm going to do is, when approaching this, I would like to identify the domain controller, because although that would be the last step in the compromise, however, the domain controller is going to give us the most information regarding the environment. So let me just get a Rust scan and I can provide the addresses. I think this dash would work. And yeah, that would configure, because I do have my Rust scan file configured. Actually, what we can even do is you can just provide the hosts.txt. Let's see. And one thing I do like about this is it's going to run more intensive scans. However, it does provide you with the initial scans and verbosity, so you can quickly just get started. So as we obviously see a lot of ports, what I'm really interested in is the 80, port 80. So because we want to identify the initial vector, and generally that's one of the places where you will find a foothold. And I'll discuss why that is as we go deeper, because in the AD, we're generally trying to identify services that we can then abuse their privileges and the way AD is configured. So we are looking for either a file server, SQL database server, or something like that, right? So when I see a web server, that's going to be really interesting. Other than that, these other ports, we'll get more verbose output. Then we can actually see what's going on here. However, I'm going to quickly visit the web server to see what's going on. So let me just quickly find it again. So port 80. No. Okay, so we only have one port 80 in the scan. So I'm just going to grab this. And we're here. Just going to come here and let's see. Okay, so right off the bat, we do get something interesting. And while that scan runs, we can get started from here. So this shows us that, and I don't know if the font is fine. I guess it's fine. So this is one of the main hints that we do get, and this is probably going to be our initial foothold. So it says that there is a server running on port 21, and we already have some credentials. So that's definitely interesting. And that any documents should be saved in a doc format. So this shows that we're dealing with the client-side attacks from the modules that we do cover in the course. So now I know that either it's going to be some sort of client-side attack, and in this case, they specified it to be a document file. However, it could also have been an HTA file attack. So yeah, and there are certain requirements for like the doc and everything. So we're probably going to go with the macro. Now for this, for generating macro-enabled Word files, you do need a Windows machine or any machine that has Microsoft Word installed on it. So for us, I do have a machine ready, Windows target ready for us. And however, if someone's giving the exam using a Windows host and then has more virtual machines on there, they can use their hosts, or you can have a separate virtual machine on your host that you can use. So I'm just gonna switch to my Windows machine. And here we are. So let's see, I'm already in my folder. Now I do have certain templates. However, these were simply picked up right from the course and they're copy pasted right from there. So anyone who has access to the course can check these out. So let's just open this. So I want a template. And it opens up Word. Now, obviously, I have these paragraph markings just so that I know there is no formatting issues dealing with code. So that's good. But let's see what's this. I'm going to briefly cover what this is doing. However, for anyone who has questions, like wants to dig deeper, can go check out the course. So basically, we're going to force anytime a person opens up this Word document, it's going to automatically open up a macro. And this is, so what I'll do is, let me remove the paragraph marks. So this is going to create an object and run whatever we give over here. Now, so I'm just going to pick this up and we can either create a new document, which I'll just do. So I'm going to come here. I have macros enabled, so I'm going to create a macro. Now, a few things we have to make sure that the place where it's going to be saving it. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to name it. You can name it anything, doesn't really matter, but what matters is the place you're going to save it. So I don't want to ruin all of my documents or templates. So I'm going to save it in this unnamed document, which I just opened. So I'm going to create this, and you can see that it's right here under document one and not the project template. So I'm just going to remove this and paste this code right here. Now we need our payload. So for that, we'll have to go back to our Kali, pick up the payload and even format it, which is the most important step in this whole process. So let's go back to our Kali machine. Now, and this is also, the scan is also there, but let's just start with that while this goes on. So there are many ways to go about it. We're going to be using a PowerShell, reverse shell that will give us access on the shell. Now, when dealing with macros, you don't want to make it too complicated because there's certain things that you need to be mindful of. And that's that you don't want to crash the program that's running, that's going to be emulating a user, the user opening it. And secondly, you don't want to make it too complicated, so then you won't be able to troubleshoot what goes wrong. Now, you can go to rev shells and pick up code. What I generally like to do is, I do have, let's see. So if I go to tools, you'll see I have these three files. Well, let's just open everything in VS Code, so we'll have a better view of what's going on. So we should have, I think it's the, let's see. So this was walkthrough, yeah, AD. Yeah, so let's see the tools. Basically, it's the same code used everywhere else. You can go to revshells.com and you can generate some. But instead, what I like to do is, instead of me constantly going to the site and coming back, I just use a simple Python script, and we can generate the shell code for us. So let's try to do that. So I'm going to do, and it asks for our host IP and port. So I'm just going to provide that. And port, generally you want to go with either 443 or any other port you know is open on the machine. Now I know this has an HTTP web server running, so most likely port 443 is also not blocked. But we can also go with some a bit more arbitrary. So I also like to go with 8443. This is also a backup port used, but you shouldn't go with something like 444 or something that might have been blocked. So when I run this, it generates a PowerShell base 64 encoded command. Now we can't just pick this up and throw it in the macro, because the macro will be using VBA, and the simplest way to go about it is to define a string and then put this in the string. But the string itself, the type of string that VBA uses, has a limit on the length. So if you remember from the course, there is a Python script shared, like they mentioned in the course, that would actually format it and make it usable. So let's see. So we can just pick up any code. We're going to paste our new code right here. However, the main thing this is going to do is going to break it up into the maximum string length that actually VBA can hold. So a lot of times people are struggling at this point because they forget that the string type in VBA has a limit. And once you bypass that limit, it doesn't get, properly executed and not run. So this script, again, I pasted it right here and we can run it. Usually I have all of this in one script, but for this demonstration, I want it to, so that it's better broken up. So it saves it to a file called payload.txt, but you can change that to anything you want. So let's see now. So this is the formatted code, and I can see it appended the previous one. So I'm just going to save this, run it again. So I have a fresh code waiting for me, and yeah. So this is what we basically need. And again, we could even have given a PowerShell command that calls back to us on a web server and then takes the payload. But it's safest to, if you can include a basic payload, you should go with that, so that there's not many steps that it has to take to reach you. If you generate a PowerShell payload using MSF Venom, it's going to be much bigger than this, and that could cause problems. So I went with the most simple one that I can see, and then we can upgrade to the proper shell later on. So let's go back to our Windows machine. And one thing we do need to make sure is the formatting, because the last thing we want is our payload not working because our formatting wasn't good. So I'm just going to add tabs to this string right here so that it's properly ready for us. And yeah, sorry about switching again and again, but yeah, that's just something I have to get used to. So yeah, so now we can just come over here and place this code. Formatting is already done for us, so we won't have issues over there. And it's pretty much it. So it's going to auto open, document open, both of them, create an object for us, and simply run it as a string, which we defined dim as string right over here. So now we can go ahead and save it. Now, when you save it, you want to save it as a Windows 97 2003 doc format, because it was specified in the web server, like the hint that we got. However, we could have also, generally with macros, when dealing with macros, you either want to target this format or a docm format. But I like to go with simple files, so I'm just going to go with the docm. And generally, I like to save it not with like a weird name, something that I would remember that I used this. I'm just going to call it editor with reference to the machine, the hint that it gave us. And I'm going to save it on a shared SMB folder so I can move it to my Kali machine. But yeah, so now I can just come over here, close this, and then close this again. So yeah, so this was already saved, so we don't have to do that, but yeah. So this is pretty much it from this side, and now we can hop back to our Kali machine. let me just move the file so I have it saved to, and then editor. And the folder is right here. And the hint said that it's an FTP server and we have to upload it over there. Now, while I do that, one thing to remember is that a lot of the students might try to either use your LibreOffice or some other tactic to generate this. But from experience, what I can tell you is that the easiest and the most effective way is to find a Windows host and use Microsoft Word itself. Other than that, you get varying results, and it's not really that consistent. Yeah. I was just taking a look at the chart in case something was going on there, but no, all good. So we want to connect to the FTP server. What we can do is do a little bit of automation. So FTP, and then we know the address, so 21, and then we can give the editor, and I think we can go with editor doc. Otherwise, we can simply just give the address like this. So both ways work. Generally in the lab, I did it the other way because I had to keep on connecting and going back. But yeah, so it was editor and my edit work. Yeah, the capitals. Now FTP commands are put, and we want editor doc, and it's not going to be instant. However, you should have a listener also ready. So this uploads it right there, and now we can just start a listener. I already have a function created for me, which is just basically RL wrap and your netcat. And then I just echo this to the terminal so that in case it's a Windows machine, it's the Linux host, I can copy paste and get a proper shell. Now, if we come back to the FTP server, one thing you'll notice is, and this is something that the students asked a lot too, that this file will vanish in a bit. And that's simply because there is an automated job which actually emulates the user. So in order to make sure that anyone who's trying on a second try, or to keep it consistent for several retries, the script will delete it after executing it. So if you come and check and you see that your document is no longer there and you didn't receive a shell, that's most likely because your payload didn't work and that it got deleted. Second scenario could be if there's any antivirus on the box, any sort of mechanism that it might have flagged it or deleted it. However, that's more relevant to PEN-300, not PEN-200. So let's see. It's still going to be running. And the payload, you notice that we specified PowerShell and then a command. Now, what this does for us is it's going to open up a new process in which the reverse shell is going to come back to us. And this is a good thing because we don't know what the Microsoft Word, like what other automations might be present on the host machine. So we quickly want to just exit out of that there so that our own shell doesn't get killed. And as you can see, we got a connection back. Now, usually with Windows shells, if you press enter, we will be returned a reverse shell. And we went with a really simple payload. It's simply what's included in Nishang even, and it's this first payload from Rev Shells, which you can check out. But but we do want to make our shell better. So this is not going to be the shell we be working out of. So let's generate an MSF Venom stageless normal shell. We won't be using Metasploit for this because we want to keep it true to the exam. So let's see, we want to do MSF Venom -p for payload, Windows, and we can go with x64. That's something you can check, but I know it's x64. So shell reverse. So HTTPS is a good thing, but generally in the exam or any other environment, If you plan on pivoting or using any shell to pivot into the network, you don't want to use HTTPS or HTTP. TCP is what is recommended for pivoting, and it makes life much more simpler and the pivot stable. If you use HTTP protocol and then try to pivot through it, it might work in some cases. However, it will be unstable. So generally, if this is the foothold you're working towards, always start with a TCP shell. And then we can just specify the host. So I'll just specify ton0 lhost. Now again, you can go with any port that is open on the host. Because 8443 worked, we can now go with 8444, or we can even try 443, right? And then this is something that I always include, exit function. That basically means that in case the shell dies, will the thread resume, or just, this will just allow the process to exit nicely and not really crash the system on the victim's end. Next thing, we're just going to give the format. We can also give some sort of encryption. We can even encode it. So if you want to go with x64 XOR, you can go with that, but we don't really need it here. Format, and then the where it needs to output. Now I'm currently in the wrong directory, so either I can change my directory, come back. So what I'll do is, or I can print out the location of this directory and just redirect the output here. And let's say I want to be in the www directory and call it and it got saved right over there. So I'm also going to go back to the directory we want. So if we check out www, it should have shell XC right here. So let's just get a reverse shell listener started, this time on 443. And so now we want to download the file and execute it. One way I like to go about these things is, instead of typing the whole command right over here, what I do is I use a PowerShell script hosted on my web server, which includes the commands I want to run. So how that would work is basically, and that has some advantages. This shell won't have auto completion, won't have a lot of things. However, that one will be much more useful. So let me just show you guys what I mean by that is, I'm going to execute it in memory so that the command gets executed rather than just the file being downloaded. Invoke web request, specify the URL 119.139, and then I'll just call it PS1. We want to make it use basic parsing, otherwise it's going to open up Internet Explorer. And that is pretty much it. So before I run this, I'm quickly going to hop on to my VS Code, and we can close this out. We can even check if there are any commands that we would like to, that would help us right over here. And I think I should have this one. So we can just pick this one up and include it in our bond.ps1. So that's going to be in this file. So what we can do here is, I'll just include that command. And now when the it calls back to us, it's just going to execute this. Now, the reason I like to do this is two things. First of all, in case I make a mistake, I don't have to kill my shell. Secondly, you'll notice I get command completion over here because of IntelliJ. So the IntelliSense from VS Code, and I much prefer this. And in case I have a lot of commands, what I'll just do is I'm going to come here, comment this out, and continue with my attack. So this will also allow me to remember what commands I've just executed on that end. So this is a VS Code as a command and control serving our commands. So let's see if that works. It's taking its time, and so now we should have it downloads the file, and it also launches a reverse shell on 443. So let's see if it managed to do that. Obviously with this, if there's an error, you can't really be sure. However, let's see if it saved the file to this location. So it didn't work. So there might be some error. Maybe I didn't have, I did the PowerShell EP bypass, execute into memory, use basic parsing. Not really sure what happened there, but what we can do is we can just make sure that our execution policy is good enough. So we'll just start a new PowerShell session and work from there. Now I do see it hanging, and that's one of the issues if you try to automate it too much, right? So if this hangs, we'll either have to get back on the host, or we'll just see if it's hanging over there. So yeah, that's why we do want to have some sort of command and control thing going for us. So this one said start process everything, and I feel this shell is stuck. So what we can do is let's just start another listener. Now this is something that a lot of the students, and this is something that happens. So it's nothing really to stress about. And what we can do is if we check, and it was editor, we can see the directory is empty. So let's just place our file back again, editor.doc. And actually, while this executes for us, while I was in the labs, I actually had a script to automate this whole process for us, and it kept on keeping the file on the server and used to go from there. I can share that even if I have that, but yeah. This is again one of the places I did also learn that going simple is much better than trying fancy things, and that's what we also saw right here in this example. But yeah, let's wait for it to come back. In the meanwhile, what we can now have ready for us is see why actually that errored out or why it didn't work. So let's check our msf venom command to see if maybe there's an issue with that. So I can do is I can just do a reverse search and quickly check my commands, and I believe we asked for it on 844 and we were listing for it on 443. Probably you guys said something in the chat. Yeah, is the okay, let me just fix something again. Okay, what about the audio now? Because I just noticed that people were still not really happy with the audio quality. So let's hopefully this is going to be better. Basically, it's noise canceling. Obviously there's a lot of noise and everything, so you have to use some sort of application that cleans up those things for us. Now it shouldn't really be an issue. Again, we did get our reverse shell back. So this time, let's just quickly move that onto our host and execute it the normal way. So I believe the reason it didn't work was because we did not have a Python HTTP server set up, right, to download the file from. So let's just do, now it's going to actually be serving files. Yeah, this directory seems fine. Let's see. And here it is. So even our previous would have worked if we didn't screw up the and didn't start a web server. So now let's just start a process and no new window. And what we can do is we can confirm our command from here. Yeah, it's no new window file path. So that's important. Let me just grab that. We should be good to go. What this ensures is that my current process does not really get affected in case something goes wrong on that end. And I can see that port 443 isn't really working for us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to revert back to 8443. Let's just use our previous command and even see if there was something wrong with the command. So when I'm Windows, let's just remove these things and specify which port it's going to be running on. Although I would always recommend using either a MSF generator or something to make sure that this is not places that you face issues with. So, and we want to be listening on my URL was the issue most likely. So we want to have shell 8443. Oh, I didn't, yeah, this is something that definitely we should. So generally what I like to use is I go to Venom Builder, and that is something that I always suggest to all of the students. But yeah, let me test that. So this time it got the shell, however, did not return a port. So at this point, what we can either do is check if there is any other ports open on the box. So what I'll do is let's start know to see which place can we actually target and most likely going to find open for us. We see that requests are the box is accepting things on. So this is UDP. However, we can see open ports on the SMB servers. So I know that's a good place to target. And we can already see other ports that are open. So this one is open and this one is established. So it's trying to connect back onto 8443. 445 seems like it's blocked. So my next thing would be to target one of these ports. I, I wouldn't go with SMB because then that would block, make the busy, but the port busy on my end. So what we can do is we can go with 139, which is also another port that is generally open and it already has a connection established. So it's listening on this one. So let's try that port. move it to my directory and then start a listener on port 139. Again, this is something that you will even face in the environment where you don't have ports that you can just use easily. You do have to do some digging and finding these ones. So let's see. And we got a shell back. So obviously best scenario is to target a port that is already open on the box, because most likely the firewall rule would encompass both incoming and outgoing egress and ingress policies. So now that we have this machine, this shell, the good thing is if something dies on this end, I can quickly kill it and use that. So I'm just going to name this one, uh, let's say server, so that I know what's going on. So now the first thing I want to do is, let's see who are we, and let's just go do an all. And I see that there's a lot of text. So let me also quickly check the chat. Someone used port 1234. Yeah, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Hopefully also the audio should be clearer now. So let's go back here and let's see what we're dealing with. So we have the user Alice, and now because this is Active Directory, there are two steps. We first want to reach a privilege escalate and get local administrator on the box. And then we want to get the domain admin that is an administrator on the domain. And there are differences in both, which we'll see. So, but because right now we're working on privilege escalation on the host, we'll look at either some, so there with even with Windows, there are certain exploits that you can expect. So you want to look at services. You want to see if there's some internal service running on internally, like SMB or SQL, or most likely going to be vulnerable. Or you want to look for any other service, maybe a CMS, things like that. Other than that, what you can expect is unquoted service path, like stuff that you will see in the course pack and in the labs. But let's see. So we can see a couple of things, and there are several hosts. So this user looks like they have a lot of permissions already, which is interesting. Uh, they also have shutdown. Yeah, that's not really going to help us. Notify. Maybe we'll look at that. So Kerberos support has been disabled. Now, what we can do is, to make life easier, we can quickly get WinPeas on the box and run that. However, WinPeas will generate a lot of output, which can be overwhelming for anyone during the exam. So what I like to do is, I like to get certain information simply using Power View or Power Up. And then once I know that these are the juicy parts that I would like to focus on, then I'd run WinPeas and then quickly just go to that uh, area, like that output in WinPeas, and see if, firstly, if my hunch was good, if things match. Obviously, that's a good confidence booster. And secondly, I know how to start with the output, because obviously there's a lot of output and you can easily miss something that is more important, and because anyone, like even someone who's really trained, would also struggle with like seeing so much. So what I will do is, we'll get Power View on the box, and it has or we can get Power Up and run invoke all checks, and we can quickly confirm with my notes that is that a command, where is that command even from. So we can see invoke all checks is actually from Power Up. Power View will help us resolve domains and other members on the, like, other computers. However, that portion is going to come once we do the privilege escalation and get local administrator on the box. So I'm just going to pick this up, this command right here. And what we can do is have Power Up in the HTTP server right here. So let me just split the terminal, and what we can either do is locate, but we should have power up. It's right here. And yeah, even with Power View, there is this thing that students need to remember, that there's apparently two versions of Power View, and the one you want is the dev version. The normal one, for some reason, doesn't have what we need. So this is Power View and up. There's actually a download script that I did create that would help us get two uh, files on the box. So let's just try try that again. So maybe this time it'll work. This helps us, transfer a lot of binaries in one go, so we don't have to, worry about that. So what we need is, and we'll also get Mimikatz on the box, because we do know that that's something that will be required. Just checking, we don't have Mimikatz here, so I'm just gonna find search for it, literally, because the same VM I use for a lot of the attacks. So I guess we'll just go with the first one we find, the Windows resources. And this is a good one to go with, because this is something that will be installed for you using Kali tweaks, the command. So if I do Windows binaries, this is something that is already included in Kali, and everyone can access it without needing to go to GitHub or someplace. These ones, if we just install Windows binaries. But yeah, so let's see. Let me go back to the current directory, and let's. So we have Mimikatz right here, and I just want to make sure the spellings. So it looks good. And the main file is this one, which will allow us to save 3 files in one go. So let's see if this is going to work. Download path, and then will it add this for us or not? We'll just have to check and see. So let's go back to our shell and let's run. And we're not even inside PowerShell yet, so that's something we'll have to fix. Obviously, you don't even have to remember all of these commands. You can copy paste and you're good to go. So let's see if this works. And it said file not found. So it picked up okay, so it did everything. Not sure why it didn't work. It gave us that error. However, basically what it is if I search for ls, I have all of my files right here. And this is a simple PowerShell script that loops through all the addresses and then just stacks the file names. And this is obviously this is something that you can just look at the documents and create, or even online, or even I'll post this if anyone's interested on GitHub. So now what we wanted to do, let's import. So Power Up didn't come up. Yeah, that's the issue. It said downloaded Power Up. However, I don't see it. And that's the one we wanted. So not sure what's happened or why that didn't take. We have it right here. 404. Okay, the U was capital. Wow. Yeah, these are something obviously this is also the reason why we don't allow interpreter in the exam, because it's these little things that uh, people need to be proficient at doing, right? So good thing I have my completion here, so I can just use that command again, just modify it a bit, add power up right here, change the P, and just specify the name path. This should work. This is how you import any modules inside PowerShell. So just be careful of that. And we have it right here. Also, now all you can do is there's the command invoke all checks, which will check everything for us and see what is needed. So these are quick wins. Obviously, you won't get this instantly. However, if there is a quick win we can use, it will be included here. And it also helps us figure out what we need to look for in WinPs. So let's see. So we already get a password, and this is most likely from the registry key. So we have the current user's Alice's password and username, which is great. We should definitely save that someplace. And I'll just place it right here and comment it out for now. And then let's see what else is there. So it mentions that we have DLL hijacking, right? And this is the path we can use. It also gives us the function, abuse function, but I believe it doesn't give us the command that we need to use. So DLL hijacking most cases is because of this bypass UAC. So it's a user account control uh, restriction that is on the box, and the way we can exploit that is using DLL injection. So it tells us, so it now most likely we can either use we'll have to grab that from GitHub, or we'll have to search for that attack. Now I do believe one of the student mentors, Enox, has a UAC bypass on his GitHub, which I have on my host machine, so most likely we can try that. Otherwise, PowerSploit and PowerShell Mafia also has invoke bypass, which we can also use as fallback to. Empire also has a built-in function. So if we were using Empire, we could have used that too, but because we're doing it natively, we're not going to be checking that out. However, we can grab the PowerShell script from that installation of Empire. But for now, I'm going to use what Enox had, and I believe it was, if I go to my tools, event, yeah, the event USC bypass. Let's quickly see what it requires. So it says pretty much straight that you just import the module and then you can give it a command to run. Now, one issue that we might have is that it might pop up a shell that we will need to access using a GUI. Now, for that, we would require to either have RDP enabled on the box and access that. So that might be an issue. However, let's see what we can do with this. So we can also try to see if we can RDP using the credentials we just got. And I do have something for RDP, I believe. So enable RDP pass dash, but we would need a admin account for this. What else? Enable RDP and add user to it. Let's see if we have the ability to do that. So I'm just going to pick up this command, come back to my shell and try to run that. Yeah, access denied. We will need a UAC bypass for that. So let's just see if we can manage to work, because we do have a couple of options. So I'm just going to copy this and go to my, it should be walkthroughs AD. Now again, if we were using Metasploit or something, we could have quickly just used a module and get done with it. But yeah, we need to be able to do all of this manually too. So now I'm gonna come and download the file and get the file name. So we have our file right here. Now it requires a command to be run. So what we can do is maybe we can give it a command, CMD command that actually executes a file for us, or we can specify PowerShell commands. So for that, we'll need to create a shell binary, which I can just do. So I'll just use the previous one and change the IP address uh, to the initial one. So I know that port is open, the one we used to get access on the box, right? So that was 443. And this would mean that I would need to kill my shell. But yeah, maybe we can try 8444 and see if that works. We can also try to maybe give commands like adding a new user that does not have that restriction. However, let's try this reverse. Let's try to get using a reverse shell. So So I need to start up another reverse shell and go from there. It's probably going to pick up faster speed once we actually get our initial foothold. The other things should come much easier. The shell has started to also not like these things. Okay, so let's import the module. And then I believe it's invoke event viewer. And it asks us to specify command directly. Let's see what the documentation said. So it should be yeah, that's pretty much it. That doesn't specify if we need to give quotation marks or anything, but we'll play it safe and I'll probably think that quotation, like you'll have to escape bad characters and stuff. So we'll give it cmd.exe, and what I'll ask it to do is then have subcommands which would execute our shell.8444. Now let's see if there is any verbosity which will allow us to actually see if this works, but let's see. So it just says invoking that, and we not sure if we're going to get a shell or how that's going to work. So maybe we can also try specifying PowerShell. So that's the issue with running, additional commands with this, or maybe we can just specify it to run the binary for us. So let's see. Okay, the output was different, and we did get a shell. Now let's see, who are we? Or was this the, yeah, this is the 1391. So who am I? And we definitely know that this is a local administrator, seeing how there's so many, uh, like we have so many permissions and memberships, right? So we can basically do whatever we want on the box as a local administrator. So initial was through a macro, and then Privesc using our UAC bypass and the event viewer. So it's not that old, this one, but yeah. So now what can we do? The first thing I would like to do is grab the hash, and we'll use Mimikatz for this. So so that I can test to see if that the same, because what our target is, either we want to find a user which has permissions in the whole environment. So, or we want to find a service that is running, uh, which we can abuse to either generate a Kerberos ticket. So like you get a ticket running, impersonate the service, and then escalate from there. So we're going to be lookout for these two things. Now, if we're looking for a user, we want to grab obviously their hash. And you'd ask, why would their hash be on this box? So generally what happens is, if a user logs in to this host machine and they have a session open, basically what that means is, let's say I RDP into a host. However, I don't kill the connection, I just log out. I don't kill the process itself. The session is going to remain on the host machine, which we can exploit. Or if there is a user logged in, an active session, we can even overtake that, because we are system on local machines, on the local host. So that would allow us to even get into any process we want. So as long as they are on our turf, this machine, we can pretty much do a lot of things here. So let's see. So the first thing what we can do is, now we can get power view on the box and enumerate, and we can also have WinPs. What I'm just going to do is get WinPs and then review the output there, because we can now quickly fast track it. And so I'm going to get WinPs on the box, and I'm also going to run Mimikatz. So yeah, so let's also spawn a new shell to use, and we can just kill our previous ones. So this one, we used 8443, and we should have a start process one. So let's see where that command is, because I don't want to make mistakes and kill our main shell. I will be making this into a PowerShell session. So let's just hope this doesn't die on us, and it didn't. So we're all good. And we have our right there. So we can just get shell on 8443 first. And that, I believe, was we didn't name that one because that was our initial one. Nope, no shell here. Let's try 8444. Our port is open. Yeah, so it opened up. So now I'm just going to name these, because I know it can get confusing, but this is just something. If you don't have a C2, you cannot manage, if you're managing stuff like this. So I'm going to call this NT a system server, and we can just use the server shell from here. So now I want to run WinPs, and I also want to do a Mimikatz hash dump. So let's start with Mimikatz. Okay, so okay, so we have Mimikatz started. Now there are a couple of two things that we will be doing. We will be dumping the local SAM, which would give us passwords and hashes for all the local administrator and users on the host. And then we will do an LSAS dump, which will give us any domain, which will give us return credentials in the context of the domain. Now, again, this is something you should definitely go read up more if you want in the either the course pack or something, but this is how we're going to differentiate both of the commands. And obviously I also have those commands with me, and this is something that I've always run. So here it is. We want to elevator token to make sure that these commands are run as system. We can then do a privilege debug to test if that indeed is the case. And then we can start with, uh, uh, so there are a couple of ones that we can go with. And generally, I just run all of them because why not? So let's just first debug. And it said we are NT authority system, which is great. And there isn't any other. So there's Alice on the host, and the thread token is impersonated, which is good. So now let's just, and you can even run these commands in succession. So we can, let's try with log on passwords. That would mean if there is any user on the machine that will have a password for, and we can already see some things returning for us. Now, all of this is going to be more useful once we know which user has what privilege, which WinPeas will help us in. But right now, I'm just gonna I'm gonna execute all of these commands, and then visit this dump later on. So log on passwords, and then let's see if all of them runs. So I think the secrets didn't run properly, but yeah. We want to check out the cache, and we see that, and let's see. So this one should have been. So I also see Tris, like I am already looking at users, and most likely this might be a user that visited the host and did not log out or something of that sort. Okay, we've dumped most of the things we can. There are more commands. So if you ever want to check the commands, you can just do this, and it will run give you the standard all the command possible modules. And then like the standard has several other modules. LSA dump has some. So if I come here and I want to check out the command list for standard, what I'll do is standard and then give this, and then it will tell me that the standard commands are this one. So if I wanted to do, it will obviously have all of these ones hidden. The reason I'm even mentioning this is because I've tried to look for these commands in the wiki. I couldn't find them. Like maybe they're not easy to find. Like it doesn't return a dash h and the whole list of it. So I just felt this is pretty good to keep with us. But now let's have that Mimikatz running and come to our system server and run our WinPeas to see. And plus I'm using tmux, so I can always just go back up and grab everything I need. In case you don't have that, then I would definitely recommend either using the log function or increasing your history scroll back to visit all of this. I use tmux because I have all of these functionality, which is good. So now let's just speed it up. I'm just gonna exit from there, and I'm gonna get WinPeas on the box. I believe that WinPeas should be present in this directory. Yeah, WinPeas any, that would work. Let's download the file. We should have the command somewhere. Wow, how come there's a previous command for 1 word 3? Yeah, because we're sharing hosts apparently. Okay, let's see. That's good. And we can run the command from our server, not system server, because that's how we'll get back on the box. So let's see now. And there is WinPeas right there. So now I saw a user called Tris. I want to be looking for services, maybe that are on the box. However, I do have something to ground me when I look for these things, right? So while this runs, let's go revisit our dump and start grabbing stuff from it. So let's go up. I believe the dump was on the host where we ran WinPs on, which is fine. I can just even scroll back here, and it's already just giving me so many things and in red. But yeah, so this now pretty much just reviewing this, uh, reviewing what we find, and trying to come up with an attack uh, that we would use to go ahead with. What I'll do right now, I'm just going to grab all of this so we can read it better for inside VS Code. So let me just pick up just literally everything before we initiated that attack. Yeah, this looks good. And even our WinPs finished. But let me secure this. I think we might need to use, yeah, this might be painful, but let's see. Because Tmux saved it there, what I'll have to do is we might have to use Vim. So bbcats.log. Yeah, this works. So let's see now. Let's visit our, where is the Mimi log? Yeah, here it is. So let's take a look who we found. Logon passwords would show us who's been on the host machine, and I believe this is going to only give us in the context of the host. So we're on SVC client 08 most likely because we got administrator on the box. So this is that one. Now we have NTLM. Great, we'll definitely use that. Alice, we were already that user when we had initial access on. We got initial access as. So this is Alice. Now let's see what else. We have a local service. Now this is good because uh, that would, so there isn't really a Kerberos because it's local. What we are looking for a service, because services in the context of AD, they serve all the hosts in the domain. So they have more access and then most likely be Kerberosable. And then you will notice this connotation where you'll see a username with the $sign at the end. Basically, this is the machine account name for every host. Every host will have this account too. So just something to keep in mind. Undefined login. Then the dump is there, which cleans up stuff. Most likely we should see who the domain admins are, which groups are there. So there's a couple of things that we do need to see before we start. But look at this. This is already quite interesting. The fact that the logon server Alice is also has an account or visited the domain controller, and maybe we can use that to see if that gives us something. So most likely we can spray that using exec and just check if this there has been credential reuse for the user on other host machines. Now this is, again, there's a lot of dump, a lot of data that person has to go through, and sometimes you can miss something. So that's why you have to go step by step and try not to overwhelm. Like it can be overwhelming, but I can just see there's only one. It hasn't given us much in the context for the domain we're trying to attack, right? So let's see why that is the case. Uh, I should have our some notes regarding enumeration, so we can start enumerating, but I want to make sure why is that the case. As LSA dump secure. Let's just get RDP enabled on the box and go from there, because that will make life easier. Operation completed, and then let's add a new user. Yeah. These are general commands that just allow you to have access. Basically, we are going to make sure that disable restricted admin isn't there. That would make us force us to authenticate with either a Kerberos ticket or some higher credentials. With that off, I'm just going to make sure no firewall is there. And then finally going to add someone myself to the users so that I can have RDP enabled. Yeah, because I'll have to use a net. We can just add Alice to this then because we have our credentials, right? And that is ran. Let's also look at WinPs quickly. Uh, so this is what I meant by too much output. So I'm interested in that Tris user we saw, and we can already here it is. So here are the juicy details. So it found 3 Kerberos tickets, enumerated 3 tickets, out of which so the KRB TGT is obviously you can expect that because that's the authority in the end. That's the service that actually attaches a key to your TGS ticket and giving you the TGT, which is the ticket granting service and the ticket itself. I see CIFS. This is good. This could be a possible Kerberos. We could use this service to get on the host, and I see another host name. So this is probably another machine on the on this target admin. So I'm just gonna what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get crackmap exec also started on our end using the admin's hash and password. The admin's NTLM hash actually. So in order to run crackmap exec, a lot of people I've always had those issues where it just sometimes errors out. So the best way to go about it is using poetry. Okay, so this one also worked. So that's good. But usually what you can do is you can do poetry install. It makes an environment for you. So, and then you can do run from the folder where crackmap exec has been installed. So that's probably good for me. It's in, yeah. So this one was run using poetry. And I think most of the people here, if you've ever struggled with having dependency issues, just use poetry to go with that. So let's see. So I want to enumerate SMB, and what we can do is we can quickly check the help menu. So for that, I'm going to do trap map exec SMB, and so that we have it's I used less so that it's manageable and doesn't go like out of the screen. So it's pretty much simple. We're just gonna give a username, password, and the list of the target machines, and we want to ask it to either authenticate locally on each target. That would check if that host also had same password use on the same host on the other machines, and we want to use continue on success. So we can either give administrator, and then the hash is actually going to be from, I think most likely have a command for that too. So yeah, so I think what we can just do is we can just specify it ourselves. So Yeah, it's simply -h. That's there. And what we want to do is continue on success and obviously specify the hosts. So that would be, let's start with 21. 21 was this one. So let's start with 22. Most likely -t or something, which I am missing over here. The target is most likely positional. That's why I didn't include it previously, but let's see. That's not liking that at all. So that works. So let me just now do it without poetry. So there's going to be hash t. For this, you want to have either the wiki open for the commands themselves, like the site, but I don't want to like lose bandwidth on that. So I'm just going to try to find the command from right here. So if it's on Kerberos, that's how it uses. So if we specify the domain name instead of the IP, what it's going to do is it's going to try using Kerberos, which is something that we don't want. So we want to use the IP address itself. Let me quickly take a look. So it should be, the old hashes, sometimes that's how they were specified, but yeah, it's not liking that at all. That I Now I'm going to activate a Python environment where I know that it works as expected. So yep, these are again, because of the Python dependency, you will see cases where you're just going to be trying to run this and it's just not going to be behaving itself at all. So let's just go to the initial time when we ran it. It was, this one does work and it's the new one, but I think it's probably, let's just try it one more time. Yeah, if I specify SMB, it just doesn't continue, right? We can specify the domain, and what we can do is We can also test, not specify a username and then test to see if anyone uh, has that password, has that password to use. But yeah, let me just come back to my dump real quick. And we have this here. We can also see it better formatted in case I'm using the wrong key. That is also something that is possible. Hmm, Primary, this one looks good. That's just the NTLM hash for the machine account itself. So that should work. And then we also have this. So let me just grab that one. And I believe we can even specify the file containing all of. This doesn't want to quickly switch to doing using some other way. But yeah, okay, the domain had to be specified. So let's just see if anyone else has this hash. And for that, what we can do is either provide a list or just keep it empty. Let's try the domain controller first. So apparently there is someone with the password. Uh, let's just remove that and give the option for continue on success so that it goes through the whole thing and doesn't stop. So continue. So we will have to make it a bit more specific by actually specifying which users we want to check this for. And that's something we can find from here. Other than that, let's also look at the other things so that we know that that is someplace we should be spending time on. So I'm back onto WinP's output. I see that same path injection, that's what we exploited. Services. Okay, so local service, SP Corp, we have our policies. That's good. I want to see if there are any logged on users. So I'm just going to search for logged on. So here are the different users that have ever logged, like they have had access to the machine. And I see this name Tris again. So this is obviously someone that we should be able to get the hash for, like if we did a dump. So let's see if I can find this user in the hash dump. And indeed I do. So let's just grab this user. But I don't have, let's try the, there's not going to be reuse we can hope for, but let's see. Going to come back to my dump and I'm just going to try the user Tris. I'm going to see if this supports specifying IPs with the dash. Okay. So this shows us that the user is there on all of those domains. However, the password is not what we were trying, which is fine. So next, what we can do is we can just confirm that in the, so our next target would be to target this SV file service. and see if we can get like a foothold using this service. So what information do we have regarding a SV file? Not much. Let's go back to the box and search for. Now we'll use Power View to actually uh, see like how things are structured rather than blindly trying to uh, find these things. Yeah, so even the target one, we can include the IP address in the start. Doesn't really. So the correct way of going about it would be to include it right over here. So let's see 24, and then you can go about specifying the hash and going stuff that way. But yeah, let's go to Power View and see what we can find. So I'm just going to make sure that I want to go into a PowerShell, and I'm going to download that quickly if we don't have it, but we already did. So I'm just going to do import module. And now we can either, so there are already a lot of the commands available either using harmjoys. I think blog is a good one. Otherwise, we can even use what I have here. So let me just see. So what we're looking for, we want to see all the hosts, which by now know that there's client 08, client 04, or 73, and there's domain controller. So instead, let's try to get we know the domains that are there. What else can Power View give us? We want to look at the accounts with higher privileges, right? So that would make we would need. Just gonna grab it from here. Otherwise, I'm just gonna open up that. Let me just grab that. So it's yep, this one. This is a good one, and we can quickly just use this. Get all the groups a user is effectively a member of. We can try this on Tris because we know that that's a user. Then let's first try to get all the service accounts, find all users. Let's first see if there is anyone with a service account on the host machine. So let's see. And yeah, it did return something. So we have Xmail service. And so this is, I feel like a rabbit hole, because you will notice that, okay, there is an SQL server service running right here. However, we did not see a SQL server. Like I haven't seen it yet. So this one wouldn't really be any useful, because basically by using the Kerberos attack, we try to get access as the service and then go from there. In this case, I don't see a SQL service running. So that would not, return something fruitful. What I do see is that file machine. So I would probably want to use that CIFS credentials and maybe get a shell using that. So the CIFS host, let's see which machine is that CIFS one. So let me see if this one has, and then there's also find all service accounts with domain admins. So this is again something we can use. And so I'm going to use this, and I'm going to try to find the IP address for the CIFS machine. Yeah, this one didn't really return anything for us. So there's no one with the domain admin service running. Uh, what we can do is get domain something. Let me just quickly grab that. So we can look for the domain trust mapping, and we can resolve the IP address from there. Yeah, that looks good. And this domain trust mapping, and you wanted to get domain computer. Again, for this purpose, I would definitely recommend having a better, cheat sheet, because my issue is that my main notes, either have to clean it up so that there's no spoilers for everyone to see, and obviously that's going to take a long time to clean up, right? So that's why I had to grab what I could from those notes and go from there. So it said the domain, which should be corp. Is okay, here it is. Let's see. This is us. Where is SIFs? At this point, you can also use Bloodhound. However, you can go with, so that's one of the things with Active Directory, that you're going to be you'll have too much information and you can get lost. However, we do have a plan. We want to target the file server and see if there is any credential reuse. We can also use Alice's password to test if that she has an account on any of these hosts. So let's try that, because we did have the password for Alice too. So I'm going to do SMB, and we can do first the 20 is our domain controller, 21 is our current machine. So I'll just do user. The password is going to be the password, and we're going to specify the domain name. I think on 22. Now, generally, how you use this is you just specify it like so. Like I just say 24. But I know there are other host machines. There are other machines on this network too. So I'm going to try to limit the scan to only these hosts. So it does get a hit. However, it doesn't say pond. So that is obviously something uh, that won't return a shell for us. Now, another thing we can do is we can force authentication and maybe grab the hashes. However, again, that is not intended for this one, because there are newer attacks that we can use, like Petit Potam. We can use printer bug and get like the hashes from there. So at least I know the layout, and I know Alice has an account there, but we don't have the hash yet. Let's get all the domain members. So I'm just gonna, let me also check the chat. What's going on in the chat? Okay, let's see on if we can return any users that are on the host machine. And what we can for that we can actually use get there's a module for impacket that would help us in this case. Now, other than that, we can also use I'm just looking at the chat for the things people are referring to there. So we're using the wrong domain name, isn't it? Corp, SV Corp. Yeah, yeah. Most likely that must be. Is it that though? Let's look at our nmap scan, which we never came back to. So, uh, we can just take a look here. So it's SV Corp. No wonder. Yeah, you guys should, you know, correct someone if they're making that mistake. So let's see if Alice, and there it is. So thank you for that. Uh, no, it wasn't just a guy. It was Fitzer. Yeah, thanks. So this shows that we can get this is same when it basically shows pwned, it basically means that it was able to authenticate. Now another thing that we can actually do is return to our administrator one and then also try to test for other services that are on the machine. So it's not only SMB that we are that we are focusing on. There are also RDP. There's also we can check out the groups and go from there. But let me just try the administrator one because generally you do get a hit when you're using the administrator hash, and that is why not getting a hint was I was like, not sure what's how they've made it so, but yeah, generally you should see some sort of hits on the hash. So we can try the NTLM hash from here, and now let's check. So are there any administrators using the same password on several machines? That's what we're checking. And doesn't seem like any any hash reuse. Now, one thing that we need to see is that we got a couple of hashes, right? So this was for the machine account. Uh, we also have um, sorry, I got a message. I was looking at that. Yeah, this one. We have this the client some the ID from that was SAM key, and let me just check which is the hash we want. This one, primary NTLM. Broken pipe. Nice. So in case we not really crackmap exec isn't really doing wonders for us, what we can do is we can hop back on the machine and try to use ps exec or other methods to see if we can get laterally make any movement. uh, you can also you want to run power view and get all the information from there. So for my case, I will try to use the Windows machine because there can be authentication errors when using, Linux to enumerate Windows. So I have seen that in the past. What we can do is we can either use impacket and use psexec and try for that, or we can revisit the mimikatz and see if there was something that was not returned in our case. So what I would generally, instead of going blindly, what I would generally like to do is enumerate the forest, see all the group memberships that are on the box, and then go from there. So either the key might be the issues. So let me just search for the power view command for, we can definitely just use, we don't want unconstrained, not local group. We know that that won't really give us much because we know that there's only one domain controller here, but let's see the mapping. I'm surprised there's no forest command. So let me just search for. There's also this site that is really great for if someone hasn't visited this one. So what it allows you to do is specify what you have and then what you want to do. So let's say I want to enumerate. I have a hash, and let's say I want to do, uh, I want to look at SMB, and let's remove the hash. And this is going to basically tell us what are the possibilities you can try. But I want to simply have a hash, and let's say I would like, we have credentials. We would want to go with, this would enumerate, collect, sharp pound. Yeah, but we don't really have any ticket that we would use in this case. But yeah, this one is also a good one. So you can quickly check if you're stuck at the first one. This is what I was talking about, Petit Patam. That's a recent one, and you can just finish the box directly from there. But that's something I did not want to, use. So I'm not going to be using that. Then we should have, so what I would do is, in this case, revisit my Mimikatz uh, output to see if I missed something, because that is definitely something that you can do, that can happen because of there's so much output right there. But let's see. So I wanted to first list out the forest. So yeah, this is basically what I did want, and this is in Power View. Either Power View isn't loaded, or we, let's see if this command even registers. Yeah, this is not a Power View or one. Let's go back to our Mimikatz and see if we missed something, because I'm pretty sure we did. Would you look at that? Haywire. So this is definitely things that can happen. And at this point, I would then recommend, let's take a step back and look at what we have. We have our server running here. So let me just get a shell back on it, 844. And we can just first retriever. We have our backup shell back. Now let's just start up Mimikatz. And now search in terms of the domain controller. So that would be our commands. The domain ones would be, let's quickly verify that. So SAM dumps are for local hosts, local things. And then we have the secure LSA that will most likely be in terms of the domain controllers. First, we're going to token elevate and then come back to it. So let's try the mini dump first. And yeah, there it needs a file. So we'll specify mini dump dot whatever. So we just say dump, and then it saved that. We'll also look at the E keys. Actually, that's something that you want to check if any keys are present, and then tickets, obviously. And it did not save that properly. Let's just quickly come back. So this returns the different sort of authentication that has been done on the machine. Uh, Not really seeing any new accounts. That's fine. We'll move on to the other ones. So we had the e-keys. Let's look at the tickets, if there are any for the service. And I can already see a ticket. This is not the one we would actually be useful for us. Let's see. So we're looking for the files one. Yeah, here it is. So the file SIFs does have a ticket. Now what we can do is we can either get a TGT and then try cracking it. That's something we can do. And for that, we can use Rubius or some other, uh, you know, uh, we can also actually do, there's another one, Kiwis, that we can use. But yeah, Rubius will be good in this regard. But before I move on, I just want to make sure that this is everything. We see the service, we see that that's there, and I'm just looking for a hash because you generally need an RC4 to perform that attack. So I'm just quickly verifying if we have that present right here. What I am seeing is a different hashes. I did revert the host, so not really sure why there is variation, but let's see. We have this one, and that's for the machine account. For the service, the that we just did, uh, we would likely want to get a better parser so that the we can go through this output. But so there's also creds MSV. So let's see credential manager. Let's see what else options are there. We have our Kerberos, so and we have LSA dump. What we want is the so there's a I remember there is a module that would parse everything and show it's like package it up for us nicely. Since secure, let's say. Yeah, right here. Let's see now. There's one hash. I'm just verifying that did we previously did they not match? Like yeah, this is it's the same one. Not sure. Let's just try one more time. Otherwise, I'm gonna revert the host and then just to make sure that everything is there that should be working because there should be a link to any of those services that we are not actually seeing at the moment. So let's see. It's gonna be 10, 20 up till 24. And we want to search for administrator. There's been password duty use. Gonna give the hash, and we want to use the old convention. So we're just gonna give it twice. This works. No worries there. And we can tell it to continue on success. So you'll notice that it actually shortens that for us. I think it was either one is the file 23. Hmm. Let's just revert the machine to make sure everything is working because we kind of so what we did see in the output that there was something for the file host. However, uh, it's not really matching up. The things we have isn't really matching up, so it's fine. We'll just quickly revert this and continue. So we want to revert 22 again, and while this reverts, let me just gather our thoughts to see what we might be missing. me also hop in the chat and quickly check what the temperature there is at the moment. So let's see. Look at that. No need to yeah. Typo in the username, administrator, not admin. Wow. Yeah, this is something that I have, happened in the past. So generally, uh, there is some like I have my terminal set up in a way that I can see a lot more. It's like 10 times smaller than what the size it is right now. So although obviously I can't really blame that, but yeah, this is a task that you do see that you do need to uh, keep these things in mind when you're approaching uh, the uh, such machines. But let's just see if it reverts, and let's quickly get back on it and just finish this up. So the reason I reverted is because we had all the NTLM hashes and everything, so we won't have to get back on the box that way. What we can do is we can simply use SMV and gain a shell from there. But yeah, here it is. Here's the issue. That was right there. So I'm just gonna kill this now, and I'm gonna come back here and probably and now what's the issue? So we have SMV, and we can just remove this hash and see. Just waiting for the host to revert, and we'll just quickly start while it reverts, and I'm going to grab water and come back in a sec. Yeah, back now. I believe it's still reverting. So what the task now is basically trying to gather what the passwords that we have. There's another thing that we can use. We can use the crackmap exec local auth and try to dump all the hashes from there to see if there's something that was missed in that case. I'm also getting messages, so I'm just going to try to read those. And we'll probably have to really end real soon. But yeah, obviously, I'm going to quickly try to get this wrapped up because what we were missing is some sort of reuse that should have been there. Uh, and then we can probably plan it out from there. So let's see. Let me just quickly change my screen back here and see if we can do so in this case we have the option for if you visit crackmap exec, you can see local dump, which is right over. Let me just grab that. Yeah, this one right here. So let me just grab this and come back. And then we can just change out the I'm surprised that our shell wasn't that one wasn't killed yet, but yeah, let me just grab the hash from my. Yeah, this is the one we need, and let's see if we can get something back. And there it is. Wow, like I'm not really sure because after I reverted it, we can now see that there is administrator password reuse on client 73, which is something that should have been flagged the moment we ran it. But let's now this will return us other dumps that would help on all of these hosts. So basically, this what this command does is it's gonna use this hash, try to authenticate as administrator on the machine, and then obviously do the LSA dump, and it will return one host, and then we can quickly then get a connection on this host and run the process again and again. And there it is. So this stress is the one user that we're most interested in, and it's now dumping. And we also find a new user called Pete. We can quickly check what these permissions are for these users, but this is basically uh, this is what we were looking for. It just required a revert for all of the hosts. But yeah, now we can quickly just RDP into them, quickly SMB into it, and we will be done in like what 4 minutes stops. But yeah, so just things to remember sometimes, especially a revert goes a long way, especially because these hosts are joined together. So it you might be stuck. So always go for the revert and revert all of them together if that the option is there. I'm gonna on O8, on 7.3, I'm gonna try Tris and see if I can get a shell using Impacket. Now, the command, I don't want to get it wrong again and again, so I'm just gonna search for the command here. And it is psexec, no format, and service name binaries. We can even have it execute a binary for us, but we're not really interested in that. So it's going to follow domain hash. And because we want to give a hash, we'll have to specify that using hashes. Yeah, sounds good. So the first one is SV Corp. We also obviously we most likely just got the access on 73, but I'm trying to quickly get the domain controller now. Just taking a look at the chat just to make sure you're not getting the input. Let me just view what's going on there. So basically from here onwards, it's rinse and repeat, right? So, oh, I think my screen didn't change, my bad. So let me just come here, write this hash, and let's see if we can get packet issues. Okay, so yeah, you just have to make sure to read the output, and that happens. So we know that Tris might not have an account on. I not grab the right one. So on SVs, that's there. We dump the hashes. Let me see. Oh, what was the mistake? So plain. Yeah, this is the one we need. The IP might be wrong, but I'm just gonna quickly brute force all of them to make okay, so this is an error you might see with Impacket, and you have to make sure that you're using a version that is works. So I'm just gonna come out of there, and I have a few of them just in case things go wrong. So I have one in. So it says that this name of server is not known. Okay, so it should be because it should be. Very unfortunate that the string is returning. So now we can revert back to track map exec and see if we. So basically, we have what we need is the tools that has this issue. So what we can do is we can run the command again, and we know that this worked over there. So I'm gonna come back here, and track map exec also allows you to run commands, right? So what we can do here is I'm gonna specify that I want to target 24. I'm gonna give the user, which is the machine account. So I should be able to simply give the IP address and it should return, it should default to administrator, right? So I believe it's X, and then we can just start with who am I? Administrator. Then it could be the let's take a look. So we have this, let's just copy paste, and we might have to change out the slash because that is not supported in this one. So we'll just switch that out, and the rest should be fine. So we change that into this, and then just grab things from. Let me try to run our command again. So I'm going to do t times. So we have a hash for 24. So then I'm not really sure why it won't take. So like 24, this using this command should definitely return us a shell. How will it resolve to that name? I think we'll have to add that to for resolution to our etc host. But yeah, let me just troubleshoot real quick that why in packet isn't behaving. Let's see if someone in the chat has something, some wisdom to impart. All right. First letter, I'm not really, let me check. Double E. Okay, dang. So now let's come back to our initial command we were trying to run. So it's just going to be SV. I'm gonna now, I think it's time for me to come back to my own size that I use it with. So let me just quickly try that. And then I'm gonna return the size back to things that you guys like. Because in previous streams, that was just something people really were, the main complaint was that, oh, I can't see anything. So yeah. Yeah, so because for me it's too big, like not really used to, so everything's just like in your face. What happens with experience, practice, it would come. But as you can see, the hashes were there and we got a shell. So you will see it's NT30 system. So now what we would do is get Mimikatz, run the command again. I believe our web server is running. So what I would do is quickly do search util because I don't want to waste time with PowerShell. And I believe the command is search util split URL cache dash F, and then you can just do 139 Mimikatz. And then if you do a comma, you can then specify the location after this that you include should be the location of where it saves the file. Let me quickly check my commands. So cert util, it's split URL, whatever. Like I'll just copy it from here. And we have Mimikatz on the host machine downloaded. So we're just going to quickly come back here, run those steps, and we should see more. We should be able to enumerate more users that might have credentials. The reason for this is that they might have either logged on or there are other services on this host. And then whatever we find, we can then move on. So basically, that's how you would go about chaining. Stuff. So Mimikatz is open here. Generally, you don't want to do this in the psexec shell. So you would want to get a proper shell first and then, you know, get and use that one. So let me just, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a proper shell on this one. It's going to kill this and there is also the ability to specify a remote file. However, for that to work, your exe needs to be an exe service. So if you try to run that as like a normal exe, in this, it will just get terminated. That's why I didn't go with that because it needs to be a service. So instead, I'm just going to download the I'm just going to quickly grab the command used, and this was the one. So I'm just gonna grab this. should land it right in tasks. And then we can then go ahead and run this, and we should have a better shell, which will allow us to use it properly. So we need 8443, that's fine. Yeah, 8443 is the right one. Should have a shell. Now again, this box might again have something that might be blocked. So you will have to get the proper ports and then try from there. But yeah, let's see. I want to make sure that it is being executed, but it's not able to reach us at port 443. So we can go with the port. So again, this would be if we try to go with, I believe let me just quickly check 8443, and we have 8444 to try to. At this point, I would actually just show you guys how to create exe service and try to directly get execution from this command. Like, you don't have to download and stuff, but if this doesn't work, I'll just switch over to that. So in that, you just have to specify in MSF when you're creating the shell that it has to be exe service rather than your just being exe. So now we have a shell right here. Now what we can do is we can just launch Mimikatz, and here you can see the shell is fine because obviously SMB is doesn't behave well that way. So let me just do token elevate, and then I'll just do, and we can see we should have new users that we found. Now again, this is in terms of the domain controller. So we can like, we got administrator here, but we already had that. This is in terms of local auth. However, if we would like to see, so I'm just gonna users that are on the, so I'm on the domain, we'll have to use other commands. And this time what I'll just do is I will create one in a line. So what we can do is we can just come package it up and just let it run. Let's see if we find any new users. So it's Pete right here, and he has an account on DC, so on domain controller. So I'm just gonna pick this up. Pete is gonna be our guy into the into the domain controller, but you never know, might be some hurdle. But yeah, let's try that now. We have his hash. We know the IP. Most likely either we'll have to dump everything, but yeah, we're quite close. So we can, what we can do now is, instead of giving the name of, wait, where is that? Mm, yeah, here we should instead just specify corp. it makes sense because he's SMB might not be there because he's not administrator, but we do have our way into uh, DC now. You just have to see if he's running some sort of service. But let me just quickly breeze. Let me just take a look at what else is there. Maybe some tickets or something that might be juicy for us to use and get in the box. So we local entity authority beat for us should be, so he's I just see him on 73. One mention is there, but we also had what is which who else is here that we can check for? So I'm gonna quickly check the chat, see what going on over there. I believe what is required, we're jumping the gun sort of. So although the user has an account, let me try to check for. Just checking like what processes are running on the host, because I did see uh that might be something that we failed to enumerate, because we'll have to first check out the box where we got the uh access from, right? People mainly have questions regarding tmux. I can just share that that's custom scripts and cus- like I've yeah, making a user list, that's also something uh that would be brute forcing, but definitely all of there are a lot of ways. What I would actually do is I would just force the domain controller to authenticate with me, and whatever what it returns, I would then relay that back onto whichever service I want to exploit. However, that does it returns a net NTLM, and that is kind of there's some gymnastics that are required, but that's not part of this course. So we have to for focusing on things that obviously you guys can expect in the exam. So I see spool. Now, whenever I see spool, I would want to run either petit patam or some printer bug and force authentication. However, I do believe that the intended path for this is different, which I did not check recently, so that we could have done a blind box for you guys. just going to take time, but it's going to finish. No worries there. So we can now definitely have to enumerate, right? And we can see we have allowed. What we can do is try to see, let's see if there's any services that are running that might interest us. Most likely a service, then we can grab the ticket for, and probably it has Kerberos here. I haven't checked the my own notes when I did this host while I was a student, but yeah, most likely it does involve. So let's see. Let's get power up and see where that takes us. So looks good. Just gonna let it download. Let's see if it got a hit. Yeah, definitely got a hit, but it's a bit slow, but we can manage. No worries. In the meanwhile, I'll just show you guys what I meant by that remote service. So last time when we generated this, it was specified an exe. Instead, what we can actually do, let me just specify 139 because that's something we know was working. And the service itself is going to be by using this, we can just give it as an argument for a remote file when using impacket. So let me just try that because obviously this looks like it's gotten stuck. So the command for that should be remote binary service name. So just verifying any positional arguments. So it's should be before the target, before we specify the IP address. Okay. Yeah, this one is definitely stuck. Just making sure that we don't go in a loop. I just want to make sure where was the issue that we faced, and I think it was the same terminal. Yeah. So instead, what I would do is I would now specify and make sure that the file is in the current directory, and then try to have a catcher right there. So not on 20, insert on 24. Let's quickly verify which I think the remote one is the no, the command is fine this time. Let's see what. Yeah, it's Kali I3T Max. Yeah, it's the chat is on the side. So yeah, let me just quickly. Okay, we so the chat says that we should now try evil WinRM, which is definitely something we can. So let me just try evil, and we would basically need the target. So it's going to be so we can't really access it directly, the DC, but what we can do is access it as Pete user, and we have the hash for him. So for this course, definitely, if you see even a WinRM, you should go for it. But with the, I've had issues where sometimes the tokens don't, it doesn't support that. But obviously for this one, it's evil WinRM is also good. Generally, it's getting reverse shells is the best option. However, we can see that even in this case, uh, the machine has started to lag. Now, what I would generally do is revert the host and try as I'm moving forward, we're just revert it and then go about it. So single reverts. Quite close. We have the Pete. We have Pete's hash. We're just trying to get on the DC now, and now I have the chat open to the side. So this one, yeah, this is the main issue I feel that so 24 did not have the hash there, but let me open my main notes, which I can't open in front of you guys because they have to be cleaned up. But let's see if I have my evil WinRM commands right there. So you think it's directly on the, I don't think they have if we would have like direct access as Pete, there is a step. So the host that we found the hash on, let me just see. So at this point, what I would do first of all is gather everything I have, sift through it, make sure we're not attacking things. But one way to brute force this would be just to use impacted secret dump, and then wherever we found that hash, similar to the crack map exercise we did, like just dump them. So what I would do is I would do a secret dump, and I would try to see which uh, machine that this returns on, and then just likely get on that box and then see what we can do from there. So it's going to be S3 Corp, Pete, and I would need to give the, I think, does it support the hashes? It does. Actually, that's a crack map exec, my bad. So we can just try to see if we can return something from there. So instead, we can use WinRM. I think that is supported, right? Let's see. B and local auth. Yeah, that's what I also experienced previously. But yeah, like that someone actually so you just on evil WinRM, let's just try that. Let me just pick that up and let's try that. Yep. So it was, but on 20. So, but the thing is, 21 isn't. That's literally one of the places we started, right? So let if I'm not wrong, right? So here's name is file. Yeah, we already been there. So on file we have Pete, which we already had access on. But then I guess there might be some service that Pete has access to that we might have to look into. So let's review what we have so far. On 73, we also had the same account. We from there we did a USV, got up, and then let me check the users on this box. So this is the main issue I do feel I have with EvilWinRM. Uh, what we can do is upload something. So let me see if I can upload a shell. So .139 has been good to us so far. So I'm just gonna go with that. And boom. uh ugly errors, but yeah, so because most likely because the file isn't right there. So let me see, where did we spawn evil WinRM from the main place. So finally better shell, and now we would have to enumerate and go from there. Let me also check the chat to see. Yeah, that's what I believe too, that the hash should have worked, but most likely, let me clear up a few things. So let's dump Mimikatz here and see if we get the same credentials to check if we're on the right path or not. Otherwise, we'll have to go back, brute force the all of the hosts, like use crackmap exit and see where we. Yeah, I have Trish's hash. We have Pete's hash. I'm not sure what is tripping us up, but happens. AD sets are kind of long, right? As long as you have the stamina to go about it and don't get frustrated, you'll be fine. I'll pick that up. Yeah, I'll try the SMP, like crack map again. Most likely, so we know stuff has started to get a bit slow, and I believe the rest of the hosts might not have been properly reverted, but that's fine. We can power it through. So let's see if this file actually got uploaded. No, it's we have the web server, no hits on it. Okay, no worries. We can just use evilwinrm to upload Mimikatz. So gonna kill this, gonna get a shell back. Okay, yeah, so this is a big file. Gonna get a shell back on, catch a shell back and then try again from there, because I know on evilwinrm Ruby is gonna start crying, so it's not gonna like that. Did you look at the speed of this? That was satisfying enough. Yeah. So let's just do token elevate. Looks good. And we can see that Pete and then impersonated system. So the first thing we would go, let's check who the local users are. For that, we can use, let me just quickly, yeah, so Sam dump would be the local ones, and then log on passwords is actually what we're looking for to see if there's anyone else on the box, right? We have Tris right here. I'm gonna grab this, gonna save that, and to make sure, I'm also just gonna do, looks good. So now I know that, because this is, I saw this, we literally saw this same output before, right? So we would assume that we would have domain controller access, but let me just run that again then. I'm going to start with track map. Doesn't work, then we can move on to either directly trying psexec, but I would like to try this first. So the hash, the domain, and there we go. So we have Pond Trace. Not sure why it didn't work, probably typo on my end. But yeah. So now we can simply do psexec to make sure that that's the binary that was working. Nope. Let's see if it was. Yeah, this one is working. So then we can finally just give the hash. So I'm going to specify the hash first. Let's see. Okay, so what was we wrong? We didn't give the domain. I guess we have to specify it using I expected to got one. Yeah, let me just do it this way. The slash. This has this happened to me during the exam when I was giving the OSCP. Like I had everything, and then I was pretty sure that it's a done deal, and it was simply this that just broke everything. So then I would suggest we would bro, I missed that. Missed the dots. Most likely we'll have to use evil WinRM. Worked for us last time, should work for us again. Or I can just pick this up and try, because generally after cracking, it should simply be the same command that here's the hash. So SV corp, gonna give the dots. And there we go. So basically, when you're specifying it from here, the domain is always going to be the name that comes first. Then I could have either added the domain name here and specified the target IP, uh, or there is some changes, but yeah. So now that we're this, we now so there's also the persistence step, right? What we could generally do, if you have domain controller access, you would do a DC sync to, in case there are other domain controllers in the AD machine, you would then do a DC sync to grab all of their hashes, so that you can keep the persistent hours. But yeah, uh, thanks. That's pretty much it. You saw how AD can get a bit confusing. Like you need time and you cannot rush anything, especially if you try to rush brute force it, that doesn't work. So obviously, while we were doing pen 200, just wanted to remind you guys that we do have our instructor led OffSec Academy classes for Web 200 ongoing. So definitely, if you guys are country enrolled or alumni, should be expecting an invitation by email. Don't worry, I won't. If you, I won't be the ones doing those classes. But definitely, if you guys want to reach out, you can do so in the Pen 200 channel. And like I mentioned, we would try to use this opportunity to actually give out more supporting material for the Active Directory itself. So do expect something coming up. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. I actually had a good time hanging out with you guys. It was fun. And hopefully you guys took away something good from today's video. But yeah, thank you and goodbye.